Thank you. Now we get to the fun.
East Long Meadow Planning Board will hold a public hearing on June 19, 2018 at 6 p.m. in the East Long Meadow School Committee Conference Room located at East Long Meadow High School, 180 Maple Street, East Long Meadow, to consider case ZN 2018-01, request for an amendment to the zoning map for a change in zoning for a split parcel located at 244 Shaker Road, parcel ID 18-35-0 for business and residence A zoning to business. Applicants John H. and Stephen A. Davis, P.O. Box 1570, Springfield, Mass. Information relating to this application is on file for public inspection in East Long Meadow Planning Board's office located at the Town Hall, 60 Center Square, and available for review by the public during regular business hours, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Got that memorized?
Okay.
So,
Good evening.
good evening.
For the record, Rob Levesque from our Levesque Associates. I'm here this evening representing Salmar Realty. They are the Dunkin' Donuts franchisee in the area, specifically Springfield, East Long Meadow. They have about 55 stores, Holyoke, etc. So we're here this evening. I'm lucky to be accompanied by Attorney Jim Martin, who's the attorney for the Davises, who are the owners. So we have the proponent, which is in the, essentially the, I guess the Davises are technically the applicant. I'm the consultant hired by the Salima family. We've been looking at this property for a while now. I actually had the opportunity to work for the Davises as well, previous to this Salmar Realty becoming interested in this property. So initially we looked at it for a Frigos. I think Frigos was looking at it for a location. Specifically in this location, what we have here is we have a split zone within the property. So the property boundaries are here. Okay, so that's the perimeter. We have a Residence A zoning district, and we have a business zoning district. Right now, the line between the business and the Residence A is here. It's this lighter line, the lower line. This hatched area is what we would like to include in that business zoning district. So basically shifting the business zoning district to the Residence A line that we showed here. So it would be consistent with the property line here, and then it would run across from this point. The reason we need to do this, I think it actually comes into play with the opinion we just recently received on the other project, where the zoning, the business boundary, the business and residential zoning boundary would require us to adhere potentially to a setback associated with the residential properties to the east. And in order to adhere to that, what happens is you're left with, if the line is here, you're left with a very long and narrow parcel. So if the line is here, we're left with our setbacks for everything. We're left with a very long, narrow parcel that's, I don't want to say it's unusable, but very not real feasible for even the width of a Dunkin' Donuts restaurant, which you can imagine is fairly narrow with parking adjacent to, your parking, drive aisle, even a single parking, bank of parking, drive aisle, sidewalk, building, and then a little area behind the building. So we're constrained in this direction, the east-west direction. We're tight. So we're looking to get a little bit more within the property to allow us to have a viable use here. We've done some initial layouts. We anticipate that we would have a building, a restaurant on the corner, and that we would have shops associated with that, probably retail or other food uses that would be symbiotic. For example, a sub shop wouldn't necessarily conflict with a restaurant, Dunkin' Donuts restaurant. So with that, I believe Attorney Martin has a couple comments to add, and see if there's any questions you have after that.
Well, thank you.
One moment, because he started by separating it, by saying he's there representing essentially Dunkin' Donuts. Mr. Martin is essentially representing the Davises.
Right.
So I do have questions for Rob here.
Okay.
You don't mind?
Oh, sure.
calling him
Yeah,
Rob?
absolutely. No problem.
So explain the relationship between Dunkin' Donuts and Davis.
It's a purchase and sale agreement
Okay.
to purchase the property, and we would pursue a site plan approval for their restaurant.
Okay. And is it going to be a you said there were going to be additional food, so it's not a standalone building?
It would be,
Is that a
it likely would be a
standalone
one contiguous building with with probably multiple tenants. So it would anticipate Dunkin' Donuts would be one tenant, and then maybe one or two other retailers, depending on exactly the layout, and then we have some conservation stuff to deal with as well. That would affect the overall size of the building.
And what's the anticipated size of the building?
A Dunkin' Donuts is typically about 2,200 square feet, so we anticipate that will be a similar, right about that size. And then we want to stay under 7,500 square feet so that we don't have to have fire suppression. So the maximum of the building would be 7,400 square feet or so.
So basically another 5,000 feet.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll sit.
Please.
Good evening, been a little while. I think I had a reserved parking spot in front of you for several years, but happy to be here and pleased to be representing Cyvad, which many of you know from the development of Great Woods is Davis spelled backwards. And so this parcel has been owned by the Cyvad Trust for as long as they've been developing property in East Long Meadow. We've looked at marketing this piece of property to many tenants beside the ones, or many potential suitors. A lot of interest, but the topography of the land and the configuration of the lot always ended up people weren't interested. And what I want to stress here is that although we need to change the zone because we need to move the line, in the law we call this an enlargement of an existing zone. So it's already zoned properly to run a Dunkin' Donuts. And we're just looking to move the line a little bit further east. It does a lot of things to enhance and make any development of this parcel more practical. It enables us to, or the ultimate developers, but to move the entryway way further south on Shaker, which gets it away from the intersection. Because the building originally, developers wanted to be on the corner, sticking right out there. This way, it turns it to face Shaker, and it gives you to go to north to south as opposed to east to west, which improves the visibility on the corner and puts the parking there, and it moves the business off the curb, which is good for noise, traffic, etc. So between a combination of putting the driveway back, the entryway, picking up that extra parking, and not mindful of keeping it away from the property, the rest of the property will remain residential. Its developability is probably suspect. You might be able to get a small, tiny, maybe one of those tiny houses on it. I'm not sure. But so that's likely to remain open, which is good for the other properties behind it, because that'll be an open, wetlands, non-developed area. And with respect to the issue that I know was raised initially when this was referred to the Planning Board of spot zoning, having, as I said at the roundtable, having been through a fairly thorough analysis of spot zoning with the Young Mansion in Long Meadow, I'm of the considered opinion that it is not spot zoning. Under the principles of the law and the recent Attorney General's opinion approving the change of the Young Mansion right in the center of Long Meadow, residential all around it, into a professional office building, when the analysis looks at what's best for the town, whether or not it meets a plan, whether or not what the size of the parcel is, and it doesn't meet the criteria. I sent communications regarding that decision to your town council. I don't pretend to speak to him, but I had a conversation with him. He completely agrees that it's not spot zoning, agrees that it is an enlargement of an existing zoning space, and just would then allow this parcel, which has been vacant. I heard you mention, Mr. Chairman, about developing and generating taxes. This will generate a lot more taxes than an open lot. I think, you have a Dunkin' Donuts. I think the franchisee has a Dunkin' Donuts in town. It's hard to, at least as a consumer, it's hard to maneuver in and out of. Here, this will enhance that immensely. So we'd ask you to, this is our request for you to endorse the proposed change, and then thereafter we'll go to the town council for their final vote. If we are successful, which I expect we will be, I hope, then we'll be back here with the plans for the development itself. Happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question. You said you spoke with town council. Do you mean?
Jim Donahue?
So we do have we've engaged new town council?
Well,
And-
I was told he was town council till June 30th.
Okay, but we do have new town
Right.
council.
But I
So-
didn't know who that was, and he wasn't
Yeah,
town council
yeah.
until July 1st. So I spoke with your present
So
town
I
council.
just wanted to make sure which
Yes.
town council
Yeah.
you spoke with. So, all right, so that is a point of clarification.
Very good. Tide, any questions?
Let me go last.
Okay. John?
Second to last.
Don't say third to last.
He actually is third to last. There's only two left.
I'm thinking of the traffic. I mean, maybe that's down the road to think about the traffic, because that is a very busy intersection.
I just hope
And it
Dunkin'
gets
Donuts
crazy.
remembers there's no drive-throughs in town.
Yeah, so I can speak to
No,
both of those,
no, that's
actually,
not-
if you'd like. So we have had a traffic study done.
You've already done a study?
We have,
Okay.
yeah, and we have the information. We're confident that the information will not be a problem. That will be presented with, assuming a site plan approval application is submitted, which we hope it will be. We would certainly submit that with that. Right now, we don't see an issue. There is also a project, as we're all aware,
It's
contemplated
off
for
the board
for
for time being.
For time
So
being.
it's not there.
Okay, so, well, we know that there's a lot of opportunity in that area, and we all understand the gas station and everything else. So there was some traffic mitigation that was done. There was some money that was provided during that gas station proposal. I don't believe that's been utilized at this point, but we're well aware of the traffic. It doesn't look like this is going to be a problem there, but I think we can speak to that in detail at the site plan level, for sure. And if there's any mitigation required, we would be committed to handling that.
I worked, the Davises own that parcel where the gas station is, so we were before you on that as well. We had in-depth discussions with the DPW and the planning department and with your board on that. And traffic study would need to be updated, obviously, but based on the preliminary things, because we didn't want to come in here if we thought that was going to be a major problem, so.
We actually have a traffic study for this
Right,
specific site.
right,
though,
so
too. Yes.
they did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did that ahead of time just to take the temperature to make sure that we wouldn't be going the wrong way on that.
So just as a point of clarification, what you guys are thinking is definitively it's going to be a Dunkin' Donuts and then one or two other shops attached with it? Or?
What we, in our conceptual planning, what we're showing is approximately a 7,400 square foot building that would have a Dunkin' Donuts on this end. We understand that there's no drive-throughs allowed. That's completely understood by the owner. So there would be, the Dunkin' Donuts would be here, and there would likely be two spaces in one building, roughly in this area, with parking associated with that.
And parking would fit in that space?
Yeah, well, it'd be ideal to have, more, the parking, the length isn't the issue. The issue that we're running into
It's
is this direction.
Going back.
Because by the time you get, and I'm gonna, if you don't mind me drawing on this plan, by the time you get a Dunkin' in, and let's just say there's a couple other spaces associated with that, right? And you have a 10-foot sidewalk or so with a planter, a couple foot planter, then the 6-foot monolithic sidewalk, then you have parking, and then you have a drive aisle, you're out of the right of way. I mean, it's not drawn to scale, but I have drawn it to scale, and it's tight. So
Is it impossible?
It's impractical.
it's,
Nothing, almost nothing's
Okay,
impossible.
let me re-ask my question. Is that okay?
yeah, please.
If, let's say you did away with the other two retail stores and just did the Dunkin' Donut,
You couldn't. So the dimension that's affecting us is this direction. So
No, I understand.
retail, I could go even farther.
So regardless of the fact whether the building's 2,500 feet or 7,500 feet, you still can't do it?
Correct.
Impossible? I mean, within
don't wanna
reason.
say impossible.
Within reason.
Very, very difficult to fit with your drive aisle widths under zoning, your parking space dimensions, the distance that we're required to have be from the edge of pavement to the building and everything else, and then being able to get behind the building to literally service the building. So
I have a lot of experience in this arena, and so I know what is practical, it's not practical. Basically, what you're saying is it really isn't practical at all.
Right, we would
Is that what
definitely,
you're
we would
saying?
definitely not be before you if it was, if we could do it, we would have been with the site plan right away. That's the problem, that's why we're here.
I guess, how deep is the current zone? What's the dimension on it?
This is actually not to scale, but this dimension right here is about 114.
Okay.
So call it about 120 feet or so.
120, okay.
So you're looking to move the line 30, right?
It varies.
But I mean, at its height.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, roughly 20 to 30 feet, varying width across.
Okay.
By the way, one more thing to add. I used to own the Kentucky Fried Chicken building across the street. So I know the zoning really well in this neighborhood.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And it's tight.
And so I know it pitches, when you go up Chestnut.
It does.
Pitches way up.
Yes.
What's the elevation gain from where you want to move the line to the next property line?
I don't have that in my head, but I can conceptualize based on we did do a topographic survey. I do have that, I just don't have it tonight, but I would say it's probably from here to here, you're probably climbing at least 6 feet or so.
That's it.
It does climb, I mean, it's climbing
I'm
throughout.
talking from where you want to extend the zone line
Yeah.
to the next property line.
Yeah, I would say, you know, it's
Yeah,
only.
I would have said 4 or 5 feet, because it
Yeah.
does go way up after that, it's
It
wet up
does.
there.
It climbs a little bit more. There's actually a little wetland in here.
Excuse me?
It'll look like La Forentino in the back.
Yeah,
There'll be-
Okay.
yeah.
You're gonna have to do a lot of excavation.
You'd have to have some, yeah,
Put a wall in
certain.
there and all of that,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's, yeah, we don't know.
Okay, I have a couple of concerns. One, obviously, is the people on the lot that abuts that zone change in Great Woods. They're quite a distance, right?
Yeah, the houses are right about here or something.
Yeah, and the backyard, though, probably, from the house, it probably drops off, what, 20 feet at least?
All that.
Yeah, so they're gonna be looking down on the top of these buildings,
They're going to be
basically.
excited.
This house here will be looking
Down to
down.
open space.
To, well,
Yeah,
no building, but potentially site improvements.
yeah.
And then this one, there is a lot more vegetation here that will remain. There's actually some wetland and some buffer that we have to stay away from, so I'd have to see exactly how that lays out.
So you've got a 25-foot, you will have a 25-foot buffer from the new line to where your
Yeah,
project-
which is a good point. So we're, like, what we're asking to do is move the zone line here, but the buffer brings us back.
So you're only moving it like 25 feet?
Correct.
25, 30 feet?
Yeah, it's roughly 30 feet,
Yeah.
at its biggest.
Okay,
Yeah.
what will be the frontage of the residential portion of that on Chestnut? Do they meet the frontage requirements for that zone?
I'm not sure what they are. That's not
I
anticipated.
think it's 140.
We're about 100. It looks like it would be, I don't, for that tick mark is 100, yeah, so it's possible that would be enough frontage for residential. But however, if you saw this, there's a slope in here and there's a wetland right out here.
I know the site well.
Yeah.
Okay, I've walked it several times.
Yeah.
But, the concern would be creating an unbuildable lot there. And it might be,
Well, we're not creating a new lot. It would just be the zone
no,
line.
I know you're
So
not,
this would all be one
but you
contiguous
talked
parcel.
about that staying residential. You couldn't put a house on the same lot as a building, as a Dunkin' Donuts.
No, you'd have to,
We don't
you'd
want
have to
that.
subdivide.
You'd have to do an A&R.
Right.
Yeah, there's no intent
And-
right
but
now.
There isn't any intent right now, but if you don't have the frontage, you can't do the A&R. So-
Right.
Okay, so the question was, what is the frontage? And
But, you
But
know,
there's no intent to do an A&R.
but I'm saying that the frontage still for that lot is from the top to the bottom.
Okay,
It's still one lot. We're just moving the zoning line. So you could theoretically, at some point in the future, tear the Dunkin' Donuts down and it'd still be the same lot.
well, yeah, or you could do an A&R and you could put a slant in at the curb.
Right.
Yeah, to cut off, okay.
Right.
But I had been told, maybe not authoritatively, that Dunkin' Donuts doesn't build new sites without drive-ins.
I do probably 10 to 12, no, maybe 10 Dunkin' Donuts a year.
Okay.
I would say 90 95% of their stores, are all drive-through. They do about 70, typically when you have a drive-through, they do about 60% of their business
Yeah.
through the drive-through.
Right.
But you don't allow them. So if you wanted to allow drive-throughs, they would certainly have them.
Oh, I understand that.
But we are well aware of the zoning bylaw,
Okay.
and they're obviously
And
already
we
in
built
town.
that into the agreement, that this is not conditioned
Right.
on
Yeah.
a drive-through.
Yeah,
so they're-
That's a totally new
Oh, yeah.
law change.
Oh, I know. And
I
that-
don't think it's going to have a chance.
No, we understand that. And actually, I think the temperature was taken of the town about a year ago.
Yeah.
And, it was made clear that, that's not something to pursue. The proponent has no, not to say that, I would want to say they don't have any interest in the drive-through, because that's not accurate. They understand the current zoning, and they're happy to do a store without a drive-through.
Just as a point of clarification, do we actually have like a zoning bylaw in the books that says no drive-through?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you do.
Okay.
Yes.
We do.
Don't propose one.
Marilyn,
It's right here.
I think Marilyn knows it, right in that chair.
Yeah.
You haven't been doing your homework.
I know, you have
In fact, I was on the board when we drafted the language.
Right, I remember.
Todd, do you have any additional questions? You wanted to be last.
No, I think we've pretty much covered what I had to say.
Lou?
I was just gonna think, the abutters aren't here because there's no.
They may be.
Well, they might be.
Oh, they might.
Well, actually, there was a gentleman here who owns the property across the street. Actually, he bought it from the Davises.
Okay.
And he spoke to me, and he said, he's fine with it. He didn't want to wait 3 hours. I think that maybe made him make it feel more fine.
Is that the little house?
The little house.
On the
He owns it, but he rents it.
southwest corner?
Yes, he owns it, and he rents it. He rents the garage in the back, I think, for an industrial purpose.
Yeah.
And I invited him to come back if this was passed to the site design review, so he could see it.
Okay.
So that was, he was here at 6 o'clock.
We need to open.
You would do.
I do have one question. So you're speaking as if the property has been conveyed and you are going to be building a Dunkin' Donuts. Is this under purchase and sale, with subject to
Yeah,
approval of the zoning change?
It hasn't been conveyed, but it is under purchase and sale with the condition that the buyer obtain all the necessary permits to build the layout that Rob described.
So if the sale doesn't go through, then we have created a new zone. We have changed, we've altered the zoning line. And all those other uses that I provided
Yeah.
in this attachment, you understand, could go into that particular site with
Right.
this zoning approval.
Well,
It's a good point.
they could go in now.
Yeah, so I think if I could,
Right, they could go in now. It's not, so it's just an enlargement. It's
Right.
not a change.
Right.
and I think what this zone change, regardless of whether it's a Dunkin', that's absolutely right, but regardless of whether it's a Dunkin' or somebody else, a deli or whatever it might be, that width is important for anybody to get a viable building. As you're aware, from a retail point of view, the depth of the building we're talking about is already not that deep, even with, because it's the width of a Dunkin'. So if you visualize that, it's a pretty shallow building. So, with that, I think this is going to help. First of all, the intent of the Salima family is to pursue this project immediately. That said, if it's another project, we certainly believe that this is going to help this to be a viable location for someone.
At this point, I think we'll open up to the public. I see some people who are anxious to say something. Ms. Richards.
I'm sorry. Marilyn Richards, 342 Pinehurst. You can see the blue. That's the business zone that we're talking about. The length from actually La Florentina, La Florentina all the way down to the beginning of the road to Great Woods.
Right.
This particular section of the zoning map has been there since it was created, probably as far back as 1962, which was when our original bylaw, or the 1962 version, it's the one we refer to. It could have been there before that. I don't know when the Davises acquired this property or whether there was any change in ownership when they developed Great Woods, whatever. The point is, I go back to what you said earlier, George, about buyer beware. This is the business zone that was crafted for the town of East Long Meadow at that location. Now, I heard all the wonderful things, Mr. Martin, about how this is going to benefit the property owner benefit, Dunkin' Donuts benefit the business owner, and I'm not anti-business. But how is this going to benefit the town of East Long Meadow when asking for a zone change? And it's a change. It's an encroachment into the residential zone. Can I finish?
Oh, sure, I'm
this?
sorry, I thought you wanted to answer.
What about these individuals who purchased property knowing that beyond their property line, there was additional residential property which offered more protection? Now, I struggled with that because I was on the planning board when we covered a lot of these Great Woods, subdivisions for the town. And I called Dan Rulier and I asked him, why didn't you bring the property lines to the zone line? And he said, because we wanted to create more green space. Now, the elevation is an issue. The abutters, I think, I'm here for the abutters. I don't have a horse in this race. I took that from you, Ty. But
By the way, we're not related, even though we have the same last name.
But he promises to put me in the will. But anyway, I feel badly for the people who abut this property, purchasing it, knowing they had that additional residential piece for protection. It's not change, it's an encroachment. I just want to read an excerpt from a piece that I looked up on Wikipedia. And it says, the small size of the parcel is not the sole defining characteristic of a spot zone. Excuse me. Rather, the defining characteristic is the narrowness and unjustified nature of the benefit to the particular property owner, to the detriment of a general land use plan or public goals. The rezoning may provide unjustified special treatment that benefits a particular owner while undermining the pre-existing rights and uses of the adjacent property owners. This would be called an instance of spot zoning. Now, I worry about this piece. What's this piece going to become? And I can see eventually there could be reasons to creep up the hill and just take the whole piece and make it residential. I think, we just need to respect the abutters and respect the property lines and the protection that they knew when they purchased their property and bite the bullet and say no. Thank you.
But it's very similar to the last argument that we had with respect to the storage unit. For those, I'm really going back and forth on the residential property owners on that. Because quite honestly, if we use, kind of the reverse argument, George made the point to those people that, you should have checked what the zoning was before you bought your house there.
Right.
You're trying to
Those
change the
people-
zone.
well-
You're trying to change it.
But these people
That's
knew.
I'm getting to a point.
One at a time.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Carry on, Russ.
But, okay, I, like you, okay, am really torn on this because I would love to have seen what some of the marketing materials were for those homes, to see what they said, because, it's the old switch and bait kind of, or bait and switch kind of scenario. I don't know if it's true or not, but would love to be able to see that or not. Because those people have invested some serious cash to buy those homes. And to look down on, a residential or a business strip zone, essentially is what it's going to be, kind of devalues property. Inhibits your sight lines to what you think are going to continue to be there. But if they bought it without any of those enhancements or, enticements, so what do you do then? That's where I'm kind of back and forth with all of that.
That's why I went to the developer. And I said, why didn't you bring the property lines to the zone line? Why did you create this, buffer, if you will? And his answer to me was green space. And, there's a gentleman sitting behind me who's one of these property owners, and I feel badly for him because this, when you clear the lot and the trees come down, it's not just that it's there, and they're higher up, and it just changes the whole impact of the place where they invested probably most of their money. And
Can I address
You know,
that?
Let's not get into an argument about this.
Well, I'm not arguing.
but it's a philosophical thing. Plus, the last thing I want to say is philosophically, as a former planning board member, we always looked at zoning changes as how they benefit the entire town and not a individual or a single entity.
Thank you. Did you have?
Yes, I want to point out a couple of things. One, Mr. Ruyer built the houses. He was not the developer. The Davises built them. I haven't.
Can you speak louder?
I said Mr. Ruyer was not the developer. He was the builder. The Davises were the developers. We specifically carved that land out for commercial use down on Shaker Road.
At the time of the development?
At the time of the development.
Okay.
And it went all the way down to where the entrance to Great Woods 2 is.
It was part of their sales pitch.
And, we were most concerned about up in the Phase 2 lot, of people looking out over Tyler Equipment and things like that, and all the other industrial things that you see looking down from Great Woods all along Shaker Road. And I can just tell you from doing 110 closings that was, and maybe it's not for everyone, but for the majority of the people I can remember, that wasn't an issue. Their houses are built looking into Great Woods, and it goes down, and they understood that they were getting a good house in a good location and getting into East Long Meadow. So that wasn't the issue. This issue here is that land, essentially, that, the area that's being left over as residential is mostly wet. And a lot of this was left this way, because of the runoff, the retention ponds, and things like that. In fact, Rob, we're moving the retention pond, right?
That's farther down.
That's right. So, we left that out for this particular purpose. So that will not be developed.
I would ask you to qualify that statement.
What do you mean qualify?
You said it will not be developed?
The retention pond obviously can't be developed, so.
When I was in conservation.
Likely won't be developed. How about that?
When I was in conservation, somebody
Okay, yours
to
right.
us and asked us if they could move the detention pond so they could put a strip mall in there.
Right.
That never happened.
Right, I should say likely, because it could be filled in and replicated, correct?
It could be,
Right.
could certainly be developed, so you're a lawyer, don't say it's not going to be developed.
Well, I can say my clients have no intention of developing.
Well, yeah, that you can say.
Okay. So that, I think, I'm trying to address Maryland's concerns.
Yeah.
And I think this is an enlargement of a zoning, an existing approved zoning. So it does, in fact, change a portion of the property's zone, but the lot is all one lot. So you're just moving the line. And I think that's very important. And there's plenty of case law, if anybody wants to be bored and read it, that talks about the size of the lot, consistent with development. The town's going to get a lot better taxes for this. So I am happy to circulate the recent Attorney General's opinion on this issue on spot zoning. And
I can say, by the way, that we have already done this at least once in town. The the new building on Maple Street was half residential and half industrial. And it was made all industrial so they could put in that office building.
right,
Okay.
LaPlante. Turn sideways next to the bistro there. That one or?
No.
Oh, no, the one next to Ari Phelan.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I was at that
Yeah.
meeting, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so anyone else like to address, please? Name and address.
My name is Brian Murphy. I live in this parcel right here.
Okay.
My wife and I purchased the house just over 2 years ago. And we got this letter in the mail while we were on vacation, and I came home early after my mother-in-law informed me what the letter was saying. And to find out about it has been devastating. It's not something that I ever thought was possible. When we purchased the house, we were told that this was basically a drainage basin down here, and that it would never be developed. Maybe we didn't do our due diligence. What is going on here, though, what they're asking for a change. And what I'm asking as a homeowner here is I implore you to not go with this. This is going to negatively impact the value of my home. So much that my wife already wants to put the house up for sale. This plot right here is currently undeveloped. This gentleman, I'm not even sure if he's aware of what's going on behind his back here, but that's going to basically make this his land cut the value in half. It's devastating. I can't believe that this is actually happening. All I can give you is my 2 cents. Now, if they own a whole plot of land and they were just asking to develop it, and I was foolish enough to buy this piece of property not knowing that, that's my bad. But they're asking the town to make a accommodation to allow them to do this. All I'm asking for is you to consider otherwise. It's just, this is going to basically ruin me. And all I can ask is that you consider against it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the? No? Take it back to the board. Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, before I vote, I'd like to get confirmation of the carve-out that you mentioned a couple minutes ago. You said you carved out from that parcel. You must have come in front of the planning board. The business zone?
No, I meant to say, by carve out, I mean, we reserved that property for business development. We did not change it to try to bring houses right down to the street. We intentionally reserved that to development, not to keep it green, Russ, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I'm talking about, so let's just use his property. From
Yep.
his property up is residential zone.
Yes.
So are you saying that that entire parcel used to be business, where all those houses are?
No.
Okay.
No.
So how did the business zone get created along Shaker Road?
Probably when the railroad, George gave a speech earlier today. It's been there since
all right.
the first time. No, it was always there, and what I was saying was I meant in the plan, when it was being laid out, they reserved that property in their initial drawings. That was going to be commercial space development.
Okay.
Okay? Not greenery.
If I could add just a couple of quick comments.
Well, so I need to clarify. So that was zoned business.
Always been zoned.
So everything from, from there up was
Right.
residential?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So it was a split lot to begin with.
Okay.
I think the original idea was to show that you might be able to put a house on going up the hill and then have commercial on the side.
Okay.
And they didn't put a house going up the hill. They built a couple of spec houses. They didn't do that because they wanted to develop this parcel. That's what I meant by carving it out.
So if I could speak just briefly to intent, right? So I think Marilyn spoke to it. So she said the intention was to create a business zoning district along this strip, right? And she showed us the picture. What we have is a strip of land, we'll call it 120 feet or so, that arguably, in the minds of whoever created it, didn't realize that someone was going to then create a bylaw that then required a 25-foot setback from a residential property where you couldn't do anything. So what happened, and it's not even the setback, technically our setback, we're 25 feet from that zone line. So it's not even our property boundary, which is here and here. We have a setback from here. So we're talking about having the intent when the zoning district was created, in my opinion, would have been for people to be able to use that much, this much width for business. But we can't because of the way the zoning ordinance is written. So all we're asking to do, and we're not asking to go closer to this gentleman's house at all. What we're asking to do is change a theoretical zone line. It's just a regulatory line. The actual any physical development will not be any closer than it was originally intended, in my opinion. That said, we would certainly, during the site plan review process, we don't intend right now to have any buildings at this end. I can't speak to that definitively at this point, but I can tell you there's no current plans to have anything at this end. We could certainly screen during the site plan approval process. And this area up here is absolutely
residential and has wetlands and buffer zones associated with it that would be very difficult to develop, and there's no intention. So this, in my opinion, will remain a nice buffer for these folks, and we can certainly buffer this area easily enough. We just need to be able to use this area that was originally intended to be business.
So what you're really looking for is the 25 feet of the setback space.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We wanna-
when you
we wanna
trade
get
off of the
25
zone
feet back.
change, you're giving up in the setback. You're
Yeah.
just moving the line to get
Right.
the setback.
In the zone change, basically, you're gonna be all buffer area anyways. You just, basically what this does is eliminates the 25-foot setback.
Correct.
And during site plan, we can work on placement of the building.
Of course.
Absolutely. And we will be
And
committed to
screening,
doing so.
lighting, the whole 9 yards.
I just need some clarification. So, what is this dimension from this point to this point?
I don't have this to scale. If you have the original I
50,
submitted, that's
it's not 50, 1 inch.
Well, we
50.
blew it up. It was originally an 11 by 17 that we blew up, so that scales off. But I can get you an approximate somewhere. That's 49 feet, so just to give you some reference. So if that's 49, it's about I would say it's probably 40 feet or so,
Oh,
35, 40 feet,
okay, so
just roughly.
it's actually, so it's, according to our zoning map, what you have between this abutting property line. Okay. So here's Shaker Road. So you're saying this is the existing, right? And this is where you want to adjust to, right? So this is.
So we're trying to shift this back to there,
up to
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So there's 46.9 feet here, 46.9.
I think that dimension is probably not the actual zone line dimension, that's probably a distance along the property perimeter.
Well, no, I think it's 115.25 to this point and then 46.
Yeah, which would
Because
give
they're measuring, they're
would-
dimensioning.
Which would give you 161.34. So if you add those two up, it should be close to 161.
So that's where and you need 12 and a half feet of tree line between this
Yep.
property and your
Yes.
residential, a full 25 feet. But so if you're moving this up, how much are you planning to encroach? Will you have the 25 feet buffer and also provide a 12 and a half foot buffer of natural tree growth?
Yeah, we
Is that
don't
what you-
really need to touch, but to be honest with you, there's not a lot. I think they would need to be supplemented, if I remember. I don't think there's a lot of trees back here. Let's go check here.
Because it just looking at our zoning map, there's only 46.09 feet
He's got a picture.
of residential A land before you hit the next parcel, which is, so this is 16-35, right? So before you get to 16-41,
It's 18.
okay, or, excuse me, before you get to 19-44, so this is the overall, this is a little bit closer. Do you really have, do you have 25 feet of buffer to protect the neighbors?
Yes. We
But
have more
it's
than
not,
that.
so you really, you have to dimension that on the plan, 'cause
It is
it's so-
dimensioned on the plan, I just happen to print it out larger so that you guys can see it. But we do have the 11, do you have the 11 by 17 that we submitted? Because I can
What you're
see it.
saying is you have 40 feet of buffer.
Yeah,
Because you just said the zone line is going to move back 40 feet, and every bit of that's going to be buffered.
yeah, I mean, what we need to be able to
Is
do.
that what you said?
Yeah, yes. Basically, what we need to be able to do is utilize the business portion of this property. Right now, we're taking a haircut of 25 feet. That's really what's happening. So that it makes the property not wide enough to get the parking, the building, the area behind the building. That's the issue. So we wouldn't be asking for this if this was a viable business location. So we just want to be able to use this area essentially.
But it also looks like the parcel that La Fiorentina
Yeah.
is cited on, they have a similar they have the same situation. They were split zone.
And if you've seen it, it's how tight it is.
It is tight. The huge retaining wall in the back, they seem to manage though.
Yeah, other than a couple of holidays.
I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you say you need to get to 25 feet, but you're asking for 40. That doesn't really connect.
I'm not asking for 40 specifically. We're asking to shift the line back, so it's based on a site plan, a conceptual site plan that we did that we needed to get to that point. To be honest with you, that area down there is less important to us. We carried the line across to be somewhat
So it wouldn't be
consistent.
jagged.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, that area is less important. It's really the area here, because the dimension here is associated with the building and the parking. Here, we have wiggle room because there's no building down here proposed. So we could certainly.
But you have a driveway.
You do-
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
It does
We'd have
help to have-
there'd be a parking and
It helps to have a
driveway.
deeper entranceway.
You see, both parties have rights. I mean, this man has spent everything he's got on his home, so he obviously has rights. But also the Davises have rights to have a piece of property they can develop as well. And you know, I'm just trying to think through in my mind, how in the world can everybody's rights be protected here? I mean,
One time I suggest, I'd like to focus on that, this is a three-step process. So here tonight, we're looking at, is the planning board comfortable endorsing the extension of the zoning line up in a single lot, so that it can go to the town council to have their final decision on it? And if they do, then the issues that are of a concern, as opposed to just saying, let's kill everything, is what does the planning board do when they review the plan? You know, screening, lighting, narrow that, you know, put additional plantings, whatever the process is. But it's really here, you know, this is almost essentially a legal question, is whether or not the applicant is entitled to have the existing zone line moved within its own property.
Let me weigh in here a little bit. My own opinion is, first of all, that it's possible to do this, okay? That legally we can expand the zone, okay? I don't think there's any question in my mind about that. On the other hand, we've talked about earlier tonight, and then again here, the issue of buyer beware. We're being asked to expand this zone so that a particular type of business can go there. If it stays the way it is, other types of businesses which require less parking perhaps than a restaurant does could go in there. So we're not, by not extending this, we're not saying you can't develop businesses there. We're just saying perhaps that maybe certain kinds of businesses aren't going to fit. And that, you know, if you want to put that kind of business in, you got to find a site that it's going to fit. It's not that we're depriving anybody of the right to put a business there. If we don't endorse this, it's that we're saying that because a particular business needs extra room, do we want to expand this for that particular business?
Right.
And not that we can't do it, but do we want to? Do we think that's what's best for the town? And I got to tell you that right now, I'm not thinking that it is best for the town, but that's my personal opinion.
I can speak to the use of other uses. So we've looked for the Davises at other uses. We looked at delis, we've looked at different layouts. You're familiar with a photo mat, what they look like?
They still have those?
You can fit a photo mat on the site.
They still have those.
But I guess that literally, you know, if you want to get good site circulation, I mean, you can get a little bit more than a photo mat, but there are very few viable uses with the depth that we're presented with.
With a 90-foot depth?
Yes.
So you know, in terms of, you know, the advantage to doing this versus not doing it for the site itself is that you could do something smaller, but then you as a planning board, I think would want to weigh, do we want it closer to the street? Do we want to take away parking? Do we want to interrupt the flow? Do we want to have the lanes we want to have? Do we want to be able to screen it properly? Or do we want to jam it in there and not have it work have frustrated people going in and out of there and having the project not be, as attractive as it could be and as safe as it could be. So this, if we wouldn't be here if we didn't think we needed to be here.
I understand.
And so, when you say, what is it good for? Why should we do it? I think you should consider doing it, endorsing it, because it does enhance the overall safety and appearance and viability of the site, as opposed to saying, because, ultimately somebody's going to put something in there, and it's not going to be as attractive, not going to generate as much revenue, and it's not going to be as safe.
So I came from New Hampshire, and there was a coffee shop that was called Aroma Joe's. Anybody travel to Maine or New Hampshire? They're drive-through coffee shops. They're little kiosks like the photo mat or whatever it was called. So as our chair was saying, there are other uses.
We can't do drive-through.
No. But I'm just saying.
But in this case, we need the size of the building because they have patron use areas in these, because when you don't have the drive-through,
Yeah.
you got to have the patron use.
Well,
They do have a drive-through only option, but in this particular case, that's not going to happen.
I'll turn it back to the board. Any additional questions, opinions?
I was just curious, I don't think we can find out this information now, but what the effect of La Florentine being to the house above over the hill, like what the effect of that would be, because that would probably be similar to what this gentleman's, okay. Good.
If you'd identify yourself, please.
You thought you were going to get out of this.
I'm sorry.
My former neighbors.
Mary Ellen Fish, 259 Chestnut Street. When they remodeled the building that La Florentino's is in, they came up and asked us about looking down over the rooftop and the dumpster and, different things that go in the back of the store. And of course, we lived there a long time. We were there in 1967, the end of 1967, we moved there. And the lot was vacant, I think, at the time. It was a sand pit. So then a building was built and various tenants were in it, or owners. Anyway, we were used to looking down on that building once it was there, and some of the owners could have done better in maintaining how the place looked on the backside and on the roof part.
The Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
Hopefully she's not referring to me. I made it better.
You approached us about, what things looked like. But they did a lot to make, different painting that they did on the building on the backside. A lot of times that's let go. Nobody, they're not worried about the backside of the building. But they did do a lot of effort to make it look, well, not attractive, but it wasn't sloppily done or anything. My husband was in the heating business, so he was in a lot of buildings, and I took care of the office thing. So we probably aren't as geared to the people over in Great Woods that are more fussy about how their property is and what's next to them and everything. We were more, that wasn't as important to us. Part of it was, but not as much as it is to those people.
Yeah, because the point I was trying to get was, because we have kind of sort of, not maybe completely the same, but sort of an example right now of a current situation where you have a business directly next to a house, and this is like, I've driven through there hundreds of times, it's directly right there. So, and I just want to know what the adverse effects of that would be, because I think probably one of the major concerns about this moving forward is the adverse effects that it'll have on abutters and, property values or traffic or noise or things like that. And, my thought is if somebody that's been there for decades hasn't seen a lot of adverse effects from it.
Well, we look down over the bank onto it, but then again, we're retired now, so we see what's going on at the intersection and now what's going on at the gas station, but we don't really have a lot of noise to contend with.
And, I mean, my other thought is, and it's not as much about La Florentine, but we already have, I have friends at Great Woods, so I'm usually there frequently. You can see construction and these big trucks and everything, very easily right now, and there's already kind of noise and action, so I'm trying to think of what a lot of the significant adverse effects are, just trying to balance the concerns of the residents, the rightful, concerns.
Is there any concern for the property value, like assessment? Because taxes, we're paying pretty substantial amount in property taxes, and I'm sure the property value is going to go down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to conceptualize what the adverse effects would be, and just trying to, thank you for being here, because
Well,
it kind of gives us a better idea.
Our more concern is the traffic, and I'd like to know when they're going to redo the traffic lights at that intersection so that we don't have to sit there if we're on Shaker Road and we're trying to make a left-hand turn up onto Chestnut, and you're there through at least 3 changes of the light before you might get a chance, and then you might even be really taking a chance to dart in front of a car.
Has the Shell station
make the
really
turn.
hurt that effort of the traffic or
I
getting out
know
of
this
that
isn't
area?
the DPW, but that's,
No, I know, and I don't want
today.
to digress, but I just,
Okay.
It affects it more towards rush hour.
You ready?
I'm not ready.
What more do you need?
I need to think about it for a while. That's what I need.
I don't feel comfortable making a decision
I
at
think people
9:35
have
at
made some
night.
really valid points on both sides, and I would just like a little time to,
Okay, do we need additional information?
You have
I mean, here's the question, okay? If we close the public hearing, we cannot take any more testimony, okay? We can continue the public hearing, give you time to think about it, and think about whether or not you want more information of any kind. And then, and that allows us to get more testimony from the applicants or from the abutters.
My neighbor would.
Also considering that the hearing started just
Yeah.
as a result of a lot of things happening tonight relatively later.
Yeah.
So there could have been people here potentially that were from your neighborhood.
They don't
but
know.
Yep.
They don't
might
know.
have left or.
I will address that. Abutters were notified by mail, okay? So,
They wouldn't be here.
well, that's the thing. I'm going to suggest we continue the hearing, and just in case the members of the board who are uncomfortable with making a decision tonight decide they need more information of some kind, and just in case abutters who either were unaware or unable to make this meeting want to come and weigh in on one side or the other, okay? But I think it's too important to rush. And so I'll entertain a motion to continue to July 17th at 6 o'clock.
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I think we've gotten as much information from the butters and from you tonight as we're going to get tonight. But 2 members at least have expressed their desire to think it over and decide whether or not they need more information. So I think it's the right thing to do.
So, Mr. Chairman, 2 things. One, motion was passed, so it's 6 o'clock. I just want to confirm that on the record.
Our director
Okay.
has chosen to schedule all our hearings at 6 o'clock. Okay? That way, we can start them as soon as we finish or close another hearing.
I
Okay.
obviously was somewhat interested.
Okay?
The second thing, though, is you said in case we need more information.
Yeah.
We would like to know how that would be requested and when it would be requested so that we have adequate time to submit the information.
I would ask that the members of the board, if they have questions, direct them to our director, and our director will contact you.
That's fine.
Okay, rather than have members of the board contact
I
you
just wanted-
individually, which is chaos.
Yes, that's why
Okay.
I was trying to avoid, sporadic.
Yes, I agree with that. Okay. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're continued, and if you do have any need for more information, let Connie know. She will contact the applicants, and we can take it from there, okay?
Thank you very much.
Very good. What else do we have here? We have,
That's gotta be the last item, right?
last action item. We have more on the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Not a whole lot more, but we do have more.
It's going to be 17 situation that's here.
Nice seeing everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Used to it.
No,
Line of business.
You built by the hour anyway, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to say that.
Are you adjourned?
No, we're not.
Okay.
We have more business to take
No,
care
I just
of.
had a question. Is this continuation, does that get published?
No.
It's just announced.
So, the butters would have to talk to each other to let them know that there's a continuation?
Not another mailing.
Okay.
It will be posted on the town website. Okay, on the agenda, on the town website, so. Okay, what else do we have on the agenda now? We have administrative matters.
Thank you for coming. Real quick, I have no definition for commercial vehicles yet, it's
Okay.
so busy, so we can continue that. I did send an email to the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission Director to get,
Excuse me, we're still meeting here? Excuse me, sir, we're still meeting here? If you could take the conversation outside?
I'm just waiting on contact info so I can draft a letter and make sure that it gets to the right people. I've sent the letter to Mr.
Brennan?
Brennan.
Yeah.
And I have new forms, I have some new forms.
Yes.
And you're welcome to just take a look at them, and we're going to have a request for waiver form so that when an applicant does submit a request for the waiver, it won't get lost in the
Okay.
mix. And you know that when a request comes before you, you read and you vote on them individually, so it will help them to be prepared in their presentation to the planning board.
And they'll be legible so we can read them.
You hope.
Yes.
I certainly do hope.
And I also have a plan review checklist that
Building material.
I'm vetting to DPW in the building department, fire, police, and the town manager, just to make sure, because all of these departments review this plan before it gets to the planning board under the review comments. And I think once they also have this review application checklist prepared by the applicant, our departments will have a means of reference, because I guess the process of responding with written comment hasn't been in practice for a little bit, and we have new department staff, and they don't quite know how to respond. So I think that it'll make everybody better prepared in their presentation. And it will also take some of the time off of me looking at plans and making sure they have the people can page number.
Yes, being an English teacher.
You've got it. So again, we're just trying to make it easier and more complete. And you're not asking for additional documentation, you get it all. So those are just some of the plans we've been able to update and revise, and we'll get them uploaded on the website, hopefully. But we've really been unbelievably busy, and every day it seems like the phone rings and it's something else. So we're doing a lot of reactionary planning instead of responsive planning, or master planning. So I figure within a year we'll be in much better shape if we all survive.
Yes. A year, George said 2 weeks.
But that's all I have tonight.
Okay.
We'll move to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you.
Somebody second that? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.